Welcome back to A Bite from the Money Sandwich, where we provide practical and easy to understand tips and ideas on how to manage your money better, so as to let you retire with comfort and on your own terms. In this two-part series discussing the IFS and Challenger white paper, where in part one with IFS we spoke about shifting super from a savings mindset to an income mindset in retirement. But making those decisions isn't always straightforward. Today for part two, I'm joined by Andrew Lowe, Head of Technical Services at Challenger, to explore both the behavioural side of retirement planning and the role lifetime income products can play. Drawing on insights from their white paper, Andrew explains why simplifying advice matters, how your biases affect decision making, and what needs to happen to help more Australians turn their super into a reliable income for life. Well, hello, Andrew, and welcome to the show.
My pleasure to be with you.
Well, we've known each other for a fair few years from my advisor days, and you were always the voice of Challenger, and Challenger's always been a leading light in the retirement space. It's interesting that you've partnered with IFS on this white paper. Did you see there was a need for this type of advice or research?
Very much so. Yeah, the background for this comes from a really simple high level observation. Australia have done really well. Australians have done really well to build their retirement savings. Super has done what it's been intended to do up until this point, and that's build a lump sum to fund retirement. But the back end of the retirement system is to date underdeveloped. Certainly, those Australians that go out and get advice, make that transition relatively easily relative to unadvised Australians. And so we're hopeful that more and more Australians get advice through this retirement phase, because there's some really important questions that a whole lot of Australians need help answering at that particular point. How do I retire with confidence? How can I be comfortable that my income lasts for a long time or my lifetime in retirement? And certainly the clients of advisors that we speak to talk of it being a difficult decision. There's frictions in the system. It raises anxiety. It's a tough call with that in mind. And so the idea of this white paper to partner with IFS as an advice provider was effectively joining those two elements to help make that transition from accumulation into retirement easier, and to change the conversation a little bit as well, to get away from this idea about it being all about necessarily the numbers. The numbers are a really important part of it. Don't get me wrong, but to start having a conversation that's around income in retirement, that's about certainty, that's about confidence in retirement. So that was a really important part of this, and specifically to the partnering with IFS. We aren't at Challenger an advice provider, and so it was really important to have someone involved with the development of this paper that had that experience with advice and ultimately with their clients.
And you raise a good point in that a lot of people, and being an ex-advisor, they would come to you and it was nearly the logical side of the brain, the left side being, I need $1 million. I've been told I need $1 million. I need 500,000, $2 million, whatever the figure is. They said, this is what it is. But from exactly what you've said, the sort of questions, once you sort of start talking to people, or people that start getting closer to retirement, is actually, it's more the emotional, the right side brain. Will I have enough that will last my lifetime? It doesn't matter if that's 500,000 or $1 million. That's the important question. Will I have enough income to retire on? Will I have a comfortable retirement? They're the sort of the worry that keep me up at night moments.
Fantastic. Yeah, I like that. Really like that idea of, I've got what I've got. I'm ready to retire emotionally, but I've got $400,000 or 600 or 8, whatever the number is. And the question then isn't how much do I need? It's how much can I safely spend through the course of my retirement. And that's where the advice process absolutely stands up and answers that question. So with what you've got, Mr. Ms. Client, we can convert that into a retirement income stream that can meet your objectives. Your objectives might have to then be ranked. You might have modest retirement savings and you might want a whole lot in terms of retirement spending. But I think that's a really important decision and conversation to have about working out what's important, and then attaching budget to that and working out how we can sustain the things that are important to an individual client for as long as possible.
And it's probably a good point to point in this to actually explain before we get too far into it what Challenger and retirement income streams products that you provide, because for a lot of people, they're thinking of retirement is okay. I have 500,000. If I put it in a bank, which we definitely don't recommend putting it in a bank, but I get 5%, or I have it in shares and property and I get 7%. That's what I'm living on.
Mm.
Whereas that's dependent on share markets, up and down. And whereas Challenger and their income products is providing certainty. So probably it'd be worthwhile how that actually works with the products, with your products.
Fantastic. Yeah, so Challenger does provide lifetime income stream products, amongst other products in this space as well. But a lifetime income stream is a little bit different from other income stream products. There are two important, I think, parts of the proposition from that perspective. A lifetime income stream does what it says it does in the label. It pays income for as long as you live, and that for me is particularly reassuring in the proposition. It means that effectively you won't ever be dependent on the age pension alone. There'll always be some extra income. So the second element of that is that it pays for life. And certainly in the work that we've done with pre and post retirement Australians, there is a significant underestimation of how long people will actually live in retirement. So making sure that there's a part of a portfolio of income that's there for a lifetime, I think, is an important element. The second part of it is then what's payable for life, and we make a range of different lifetime income stream products available. We make available guaranteed products, so you know the amount of the income that you'll receive, as well as knowing it'll be payable for life. And in that proposition, it's really simple. Guaranteed income for as long as you live, irrespective of how long that is and how well or poorly investment markets perform. So that's the guaranteed lifetime income, and then we have investment linked lifetime incomes streams, and that's where a lot of the developments happened over the course of the last 5 years or so. A whole lot of development, new providers coming into the Australian market to help Australians with this challenge of income that lasts a lifetime in those circumstances. For me, if I look at which product, that's part of what we were trying to do in this white paper with IFS, is take away the idea that it's a one or the other sort of conversation. And certainly when we talk about using a lifetime income stream, it's a lifetime income stream in combination with other things. And you mentioned a bank account, and you mentioned shares. I think it makes sense that retirees hold cash in a bank account. I think it makes sense that Australian retirees hold shares either directly or through their superannuation fund in the form of an account-based income stream. Makes absolute sense. But I also think it makes sense that there's other income streams in there as well, and that's where we fit into that proposition.
Yeah, and I think when you're sort of saying that you provide that lifetime, it's guaranteed, even to the point that when I have spoken to clients or coached people since leaving as an advisor, they're sort of saying, well, can I actually replace? I used to get the middle of the month every month my pay. Can I actually set up my superannuation, my income stream, so that it pays me in the middle of the month? So I don't. It's that you're trying to take the anxiety out of retirement, and just even things like that. Absolutely, you can get it paid monthly. You can get it paid, beginning of the month or middle of the month, just like you did at work, and you get that certainty there's money's coming in. It's amazing how you can just see people's shoulders just drop. They relax. They just feel, oh, okay. There's things like this that are available to me, and it's one of the things we go back to. And you said before, the product providers. It's great that they can help advisors like IFS doing in this white paper, because it's just so important that more Australians, and there's only about 15 to 20% of Australians get actual advice when they retire, because they don't know what they don't know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
these products.
Yeah, I love that idea of setting up an income stream that replaces the income that you previously received from employment or self-employment. That you could build with an account-based income stream from your super, plus a lifetime income stream, and then other income that falls into it. You might have, one income stream that pays on the first of the month, one that pays on the 15th of the month. You've got, fortnightly income then coming in, and certainty of that. If I look at some of the other benefits that come from that sort of strategy as well, I think, the ability to really hone in on what's important to a particular individual, is maximizing the income that you receive the dominant priority that you have? Is it about the certainty of income? Different, similar concept, but I'd be prepared to accept slightly less income if it was more certain that it would be regularly paid and be paid for as long as I live. How do I manage the risks that I'm exposed to? What happens? I've been invested in super a long time. I see that it goes up and down, but what's the effect of that in my retirement? And then ultimately, I'm keen on making sure that there's something left over for the kids. And my prioritization of, say, those four core objectives, I think quite reasonably will be different from yours and different from any other person. So it's about making sure that you've got the right combination for you and I've got the right combination for me.
And the way you're just even speaking, they're very emotional type decisions. And
Yeah.
I think, uh, yes, it's people say, oh, it's just mathematics. We work out. No, it's not. It's your next stage of life. It's the next big, great stage of life. It can be for many people. One of the things I really enjoyed reading about this white paper was it was very much the behavioral science and helping advisors, not just their clients, but even the advisors talking to the clients that it shouldn't be maybe about asset allocation or how much is in shares, how much is in property, but understanding your clients are very anxious about this time of life, are very concerned that they will have enough money. And even having the stats that, and it makes sense that advised people for retirement are happier than people who aren't advised. It just sort of makes sense, and yet, where is still so few people get advice. What with Challenger being part of this white paper, you obviously saw this as an important part, the behavioral science behind
Yes.
this.
Well, very much so. Yeah. Your words play back in my language. Retirement's not just numbers. It's not entirely rational. Without tooting my own horn, I'm good at the maths of it, but I think where I spend a lot of time, trying to get a handle around this is the emotional elements of what that presents at that point in time as well. Even within my family, my wife and I take very different approaches to financial decisions and planning for retirement decisions, and looking at what our retirement looks like. And it's not our understanding of the maths that changes that at all. It's absolutely the emotion that each associate with that decision. Now, if I look at the retirement decision, the decisions in isolation are, sometimes complicated. Bundle up a whole heap of decisions that you make, and it becomes quite complex quite quickly. So that's, absolutely an element. I think also there's an element of uncertainty, because it's, for most of us, the first time that we'll go through this. It's new territory that we're going through here, and I think it's reasonable that we give some time to consider what the consequences are, and the consequences of getting it wrong lasts a long time, and so it's a pretty high stakes sort of decision. That fear, when we talk to pre and post retirees, the concern about retirement peaks pre-retirement, because it's that contemplation of that decision that is difficult for clients to understand in that circumstance. And as a consequence of the high stakes that are involved, I think we go to our usual decision making process for how we contemplate this particular decision. We take things that are familiar and we try to apply them into the future. And sometimes that's not perfect. I really like the benefit of having an external guide, someone that's been through it before, that can help you out, and that's what an advisor or coach can do. With that in mind, it's a journey that they've been along with other clients, and you get the benefit of those learnings with that in mind. If I take, the one final element for me of the behavioural ideas that we really tried to deal with here, for me, there's a really simple one, and it's this idea that we present in the white paper as the choice paradox, and it's effectively that we like the idea of choice. Lots of choice is good, but sometimes too much choice effectively leads us to decision paralysis. We don't I'm standing in front of a whole row of different washing powders in a supermarket. That might complicate it, but then when I'm presented with 50 alternatives for funding my retirement, that really gets the brain working. And so what we tried to do was come up with some ideas that might resonate with some clients, and we presented them in terms of a strategy that delivers certainty. At the other end of that spectrum, we've got a strategy that delivers flexibility, and somewhere in the middle, we've got this idea of balance. What we found is that people identify somewhere along that spectrum, and that starts to simplify that decision making process.
And I think that's great for the advisor as well when they're explaining this to clients, because I do know advisors, they want to do the right thing by clients, but as you say, if they give them too many choices, you really, 3 to 5 is it. You really shouldn't be trying to do any more than that. One of the things that I really want to pick up on, you were just commenting on, and really, I was telling you before that we ran our Retirement, Leisure and Health Expo, so I got a plug in about just a couple of weeks ago, and that I need to do better for next year is I definitely got the 60 to 70, 75 retirees or 1 year off retirement. But as you said, the most anxiety is the pre-retirement, and I needed to get I think my marketing better for the 50 to 60-year-olds to get them there, because when I speak to most 50-year-olds, they say, "Oh, I'm still working. I'm in the middle of my career. Retirement's a long way off." And I say, "You need time to plan for this. You need 5 to 10 years to plan for this." And a great anecdote from someone in our industry who you would know, he said, "That's a bit strange. I've got all the money in the world." I said, "No, no, go home and speak to your wife." And he said, "That's a bit strange." So he went home and did. And she said, "It's important for you to know I married you for breakfast and dinner. I didn't marry you for lunch. So I don't care what you do in retirement, but you're not spending lunch with me. So start planning now." It's an interesting thing how even husband and wives or partners don't talk about this stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, what's going to occupy the hours in the day that many of us have dedicated to work over that period of time? Starting to contemplate. I look at spending plans for retirement, and you can get really detailed Excel calculations of what spending should look like. I think the most important part of that is thinking about what you're going to do, and what just simply because this is what I spend today while I'm employed doesn't necessarily mean that's what I'm going to spend tomorrow. So yeah, I think that's a really important decision to take. I also think that's an ongoing decision, and an ongoing conversation. And if I look at my parents-in-law, where we're looking at a couple long retired, who are now contemplating the next phase of their retirement. Not all retirement looks like the first 5 years
Yeah,
of,
good
of,
point.
of retirement. It's something that you revisit over and over again as you age and as your priorities change through retirement as well.
And I think advisors, again, have a really good, strong role to play when they think of, "Oh, okay, I've done my job. I may have built this income stream, gives my clients certainty." But if they've actually not talked to their clients about, have you actually prepared? What are you now going to do? Financially, you're sorted, but what are you going to do with your partner, with your new purpose, if you're leaving work? All these things, and this is sort of mentioned in the white paper that you need to look at it. Just it's more than just the money.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I look at the learnings for me through those conversations with advisors, and ultimately the learnings that clients have brought to that. Yeah, the money is important, but the money is a means ultimately to an end. But I will highlight that with appropriate money plans made, that confidence that brings can then lead into other things as well. And I think the outcomes of that are interesting and important as well. So getting that money right can give you the confidence to go off and spend and do the things that are important, knowing that things are otherwise settled.
And when we talk about actually lifetime income products, and the way you've explained it makes perfect sense, but it's not as if 50% of Australians are using lifetime income products. Is there and especially with like white papers like this help explain lifetime income products, but what do you see the challenges to get a broader uptake
Yeah,
of
so I
these?
think if I look at some of the challenges there, historically they've been relatively limited in terms of availability.
Yep.
So many retirees, pre-retirees, members of superannuation funds, and superannuation funds for a long time have offered what I'd call an account-based pension as an option. But we don't have to go all that far back in history to a day when the dominant form of income stream paid from superannuation funds was actually a lifetime income stream, a
True.
defined benefit income stream that was paid to members. And we've seen this change in markets, and we've seen account-based pensions become really popular. I'd say the story of the last 2 years, and certainly the story of the next five, is broader availability of retirement income streams of different types from superannuation funds. And I'm really looking forward to that increased availability through the place that probably feels most comfortable to an Australian retiree. I've been a member of a super fund for 20 years. It served me well. I might start there as the home for my income streams. Um, I so more income streams, better, big tick. I'd also say that we've had an increased focus over the last decade on the flexibility of lifetime income streams. So if I talk to an Australian today and say, what's a lifetime annuity? I'm going to get quite a few people who will look back at me a little bit blankly, reasonably so. I will then get some people that will say, well, they're they pay for life, but they're a little bit inflexible. If I were to pass away, I might lose my money. We've tried to address those particular concerns with product functionality that we've built into products. Products today feature long death benefit periods. If you die, you don't lose the capital that you've invested. They have long periods that you can withdraw if you change your mind. So, designed to address those objections to traditional lifetime income streams. And then perhaps the most important part is, I think what we've tried to do is position it as part of a portfolio of retirement income sources that does something very particular. It's there for a reason. It's the reason that you have a cash account as a retiree when cash rates like they were 5 years ago were close to zero. It still made sense to have a cash account as a retiree, even though it paid no interest, because you needed next month's groceries
Yeah.
and you needed the months after that. And so if people start to then focus on what this is for, give it purpose, I think it becomes a little easier. And the final part I think we can do better is, I think we can start positioning the role of lifetime income for Australians earlier. And we can start, perhaps notionally allocating part of our retirement savings to a bit that will be there forever. It's 20% of my retirement savings, or 10%, or 30%, whatever the number happens to be. But that's my future lifetime income that we're positioning aside. And I think super funds are starting to grab that opportunity now and starting to position these to reduce the friction at retirement around that decision to commit to a lifetime income stream.
And I think you were saying that, yeah, the next 5 years, it's going to be a bigger part, because I've even just myself, I've known Challenger for 20 years or 30 years, and you were the gold standard, but also there weren't really that many others that were competing with you. But in just in the last 12 months, I've seen four others pop up, for major funds. So that type of choice, that type of information and education will also, I feel, help the advice community and help the actual Australian pre-retiree and retiree community. So I think these are all great. One of the things we were chatting offline a bit about was the use of technology as well. And technology in this is making it easier for, for these products to do. Well, probably for you, the question to you is, how does technology play a role in helping deliver better, smarter pathways for members and just Australians in general, I suppose?
Yeah, but I think technology can help simplify a lot of the decisions that are involved. And something as simple as a retirement calculator that factors in income from all sources, I think is a really, really useful tool to have a play around with in the lead up to retirement. It can, t- converting your super balance. Log on to your super fund website. Get a copy of your latest statement if it's at home. Log on to the app if you've got one. You'll be presented with a lump sum number. It's here's your retirement number. It's 200,000. It's $1 million. It's whatever it happens to be. Now, converting that into what I can spend in retirement is hard without some serious number crunching. And some of the calculators that the super funds and even the government via the MoneySmart .gov.au website are making available, I think, starts to simplify that conversion of lump sum into retirement income spending. I think it can help illustrate to you what the risks are and how you're exposed to them. I think it can help you solve for those risks. So yeah, I love the idea of technology to help decision making. And certainly when I see advisors, clients and members of super funds engaging with tools and then presenting those to advisors, I've gone away and I've done some number crunching. That really, I think, sparks an informed conversation about the options and choices that are available to Australians.
And I think that's really important because people don't know. They don't know these are available, and you can go, as you said, to the MoneySmart. It's a free government website, but most super funds and Challenger have these calculators that are just there, and you just go tinker around. And even if you're not quite sure how to use them, it gives you some ideas, which then if you go, so well, therefore I need to go get some advice, and you're right, informed decision. Is there anything that from the research of this white paper, probably as a final comment, that you sort of thought, oh, well, that surprised me, I didn't quite see that? Or is it, this is just good conversations that's to start now?
Yeah. For me, I think the element of the behavioural and factoring in when we spoke to IFS about the challenges that super fund members were faced with when approaching the decision. So much of it was explained to me by that work that was done to present those absolutely human behaviours that effectively support us most of the time, but can sometimes undermine really important decisions. And so, yeah, that was the eye opener for me for this part of it. The second part that is perhaps more familiar territory to me was this idea of the benefits that different strategies could present. I talk to advisors most days about the benefits of strategies for retirement. So yeah, but for me, lining up strategy through to desired member outcome, that I think is new news, and hopefully Australians will benefit from that sort of that sort of inclusion over time.
Yeah, and I think not just Australians, that advisors start to think, okay, think differently on how they can help their clients. But it's just so important that I think when you look at the behaviors around retirement, I used to always say, if you see an advisor, someone who's helped someone retire 100 times, you get one chance at it. You, the client, you, the Australian, get one chance. Go to someone who's helped 100 people previously to make sure you get the best possible chance to have the retirement of your dreams. Now, this is brilliant, Andrew, and this topic, pre-retirees and retirees, love talking about it, and all this behavioral science is just great that people are doing more and more on this. But I won't keep you. I know you're going other things. So one question I will ask, which I ask all my clients, is what's, say, the very best piece of advice you've ever received? And it can be financial or life advice. But yeah, interested in knowing your thoughts.
Okay. Um, I'll try and tackle a piece of advice that can possibly be applied both financially and outside of that. It's something I think that's pretty simple. It's the idea that small steps can lead to big change, and I think that's absolutely true in a financial context as well as outside of that. You know, if I look at some of what we were trying to address in this white paper was this idea of retirement being a really big and important decision. And if we can break it down into small steps, smaller decisions, I think we can get through some of that complexity relatively easily. You know, I'd hate for someone to be paralyzed about the magnitude of the decision and simply not do anything as a consequence. And if I look at the numbers, we see plenty of Australians who are over 65 years of age that are still sitting in the accumulation phase of superannuation because they haven't got round to dealing with it. I look at the average age of clients claiming the age pension, and there's a delay between when someone's eligible to claim the age pension and when they ultimately claim. And it's just that it's hard. It's all of these sorts of things. So if we can break it down into little parts, I think we can make a big difference. You know, take pre-retirement, something as simple as a little more into your retirement savings pot of choice. And just a little bit extra, compounded by time, can make a big difference in retirement. The same's true in retirement. If I can get a little more age pension, if I can get a little more certainty of income outcomes, you know, if I'm in a retirement that lasts on average 25 or 30 years, it can make a material difference over that period of time. So, you know, small steps, big change.
Yeah, I love that. Small steps can lead to big change. And it really is true. That is very true. And the last thing we want, as I totally agree, is to be paralyzed by fear when making this. This is too big a decision to get wrong. Get advice, get help, and little steps can make a big change. No, really. Andrew, it's been great to have you on the show. Thank you very much for your time and appreciate all your help today.
Awesome, Mark. Pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed this second part of the series. If you'd like to know more about Andrew Lowe and Challenger, visit www.challenger.com.au or feel free to email me on admin@themoneysandwich.com or visit our website, themoneysandwich.com, if you have any questions or would like to learn more. Enjoyed this episode and want to hear more of A Bite from the Money Sandwich? Make sure you subscribe on your platform of choice so you can automatically receive each episode as soon as it's released. As with every podcast, this information is not advice, as not personalized to your own situation, and past performance is never guaranteed for the future. What we are trying to do here is to provide tips, coaching, and education to help improve your money knowledge, which we believe can only be a good thing. See you next time when we take another bite from the Money Sandwich.